Blade Runner 2049 is a long-awaited sequel to Ridley Scott's 1982 masterpiece. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, the film stars Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, and it tells the story of Officer K and the journey that he goes on, unravelling this mystery that leads him to finding Deckard, portrayed by Harrison Ford. And I'm not really going to say much more than that, because if I was to go more into the plot, I would be giving away massive spoilers. You've probably already seen the film by now. It's been out a couple of weeks. But just in case you haven't, or just in case you're waiting for a recommendation from me for some reason, then I'm not going to be going into spoilers, and I won't be revealing any massive, big, kind of major plot points or twists or anything like that. I was thinking of maybe just going straight to a spoiler-heavy review, but then I thought, if there's anyone that doesn't want the film to spoil, or if there's anyone that hasn't seen it, then they wouldn't really be able to watch my review. So I'm going to do a spoiler-free review. Maybe I'll do some more in-depth spoiler discussion at some point, but for this video, it is going to be spoiler-free. Now, before I get into my main positives I have for this film, and trust me, there's a lot of them, I first have to say that if you haven't seen Blade Runner 2049, if you haven't seen the original, and you don't know whether to see this movie or not, I would definitely recommend seeing it. But that being said, if you don't know what Blade Runner is, or if you haven't seen the original, and you're not sure whether to see this movie or not, I would say see it, but don't go in expecting a big blockbuster action-packed extravaganza, because that's not what Blade Runner is at all. That's one of the things I like most about this film, is that they could have so easily done a watered-down PG-13 American action movie version of Blade Runner. But Denis, he didn't do that at all. You know, he's a massive fan of the original, and it was very true to the original and very respectful to the original, and very much like the original in the fact that it was dark, it was adult, you know, it was smart, it was sophisticated. If you think this is going to be some big American action movie, Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, that's not what it is at all. It's a Blade Runner film, it's a science fiction film, it's dark, it's complex, it's, you know, thought-provoking, it's slower paced. So if you just want a, you know, straightforward, big, fun, action-packed science fiction film, it's not really what this is. There's some action in it, and the action's really great, but this is more of a darker neo-noir science fiction film, just like the original Blade Runner. So I just feel like I have to say, if you don't know what Blade Runner is, that's what you're going to get, you know, so you know what you're getting yourself in for. The first step, I kind of touched on this already, but I loved how this film kind of maintained the dark neo-noir feel of the original. You know, it depicts a very kind of intense and scary future, and I love that, because in a lot of these kind of, you know, futuristic science fiction films, the future is really cool. You're like, I want to go there. But with Blade Runner, it's the kind of future that it looks really cool, but it's also really scary, and you're not really sure whether you want to live there or not. You know, and I love that about the original, and what this film did as well. It maintained that same kind of dark, scary feel to this kind of dystopian, futuristic vision of LA. And that's what I thought was so great about what Denis brought to the environments and the locations of this film. It very much felt like that same world from the original Blade Runner, but 30 years on. It wasn't exactly the same. There were some similarities, but it also moved on, and it was different at the same time. You know, it wasn't an exact carbon copy of the locations from the original, but it was recognisable as the original, but just the fact that it maybe has evolved, and it still kind of somewhat resembles that same world we knew from before. And I love that. And like I said, the dark neo-noir feel. This isn't as much a straight kind of neo-noir detective story as maybe the first one is, but, and I'll touch on this in a second, I love that this film had its own kind of different personality and style to it, whereas the first one is this more contained neo-noir detective story. This film, although it still has those kind of neo-noir detective elements to it, it's more of this kind of grand, kind of just epic mystery film, and that's what I loved about this. You know, it wasn't just them doing the exact same thing that worked in the first film again. You know, it wasn't a carbon copy of the original at all. It resembled the original, and there were some similarities to the original in certain ways, but it was also its own film. And that's one of the things I liked most about this film. Probably the thing I liked most about it was that although this is technically a sequel to the original, and it still works as a sequel, it still is a continuation of that Deckard storyline, but it's also very much its own self-contained story. And I feel like it is more rewarding if you have seen the original and you do know who Deckard is and all of that, so you do know the background and history to the film. But at the same time, you could go to this film and you wouldn't be lost. It's its own self-contained story with its own new set of characters, and that's what I love so much about it. It threw me off at first. I thought it could be more closer connected to the original, and it is connected in a certain way through a certain storyline, but it's also its own self-contained story with this brand new character played by Ryan Gosling. And I really appreciated that so much more the second time round. Is that they didn't play it safe. They didn't just do a straight sequel to the original. This isn't Blade Runner Part 2 at all. It's its own story with its own character that it's following that just so happens to be set in that same Blade Runner world. And I really like that, and I'm really glad that they went that direction. But also at the same time, it does still act as a continuation of the story from the original, and that it brings back Deckard, and the storyline that he's involved in very much is connected to the events of the original film. This movie is a lot more about Kay and his journey, and Deckard's more of a supporting character who does play a pivotal role and a very significant part in the movie, but it is Kay's film. This is Ryan Gosling's film, and it is about his character and his story, which I really liked and appreciated. And I think it was a really remarkable achievement that this film was able to both continue that story from the original whilst telling its own separate, self-contained story at the same time, because it was very much its own film, but it was also a continuation of that original film in terms of expanding that world we were introduced to in the original and digging deeper into certain things that were explored in the original, and very much acting like it's like a thematic continuation of the original whilst also being its own self-contained story at the same time. And I think when you really look at it and think about it, and the fact that they were able to do that so spectacularly well, I think that they deserve a massive amount of credit for being able to do both those two things at the same time, telling a very own self-contained story and being a film that very much works on its own, but also a film that very much works as a continuation of the original Blade Runner. I think it was really well done. And I touched on this earlier, but I love that this film was a very kind of captivating mystery that told a very deep kind of personal story, but on this kind of epic, grandiose scale. And that's why I kind of see this film as like a kind of a mystery epic almost. It's like a really great, really intriguing, thought-provoking mystery, but it was also just very epic and grandiose and ambitious at the same time. And bringing me on to Kay himself, played by Ryan Gosling, and also Deckard, portrayed by Harrison Ford. One of the best things about this film, I think, is that it was so emotionally compelling. It really hit me at certain points, and it's really hard to talk about this without getting into specifics, but there's a particular thing that Ryan Gosling's character does that got me really emotional, and then certain things that transpire at the very end of the film also got me very emotional. But yeah, I just feel like what I can talk about without getting into spoilers is that what made this film so emotionally compelling for me was the arc of Ryan Gosling's character of Kay, his emotional journey that he goes on. And what I like so much about this film is that at its core, it was about the emotional journey of Kay and how he starts off as this mindless kind of slave following orders almost for the police, and how he goes on this spectacular arc. I really do feel like, especially on the second viewing, it made me realise and really appreciate how great of an arc his character has. I really feel like this is one of the best arcs for any character I've seen in any film so far this year, because like I said, at its heart, this film was really about the emotional journey that Kay goes on, and I think it was done so spectacularly well. How we starts off at the beginning of the film, this mind-controlled slave just basically following orders for the police, to where he ends up at the end of the film and what he decides to do at the end of the film. I just think really worked. It really hit me. It was really powerful, and Ryan Gosling delivered a really great, kind of really emotional but really restrained performance, where it's like, he's got all this emotion boiling underneath, but he's trying to keep it under this cool, calm exterior, and there's certain moments where it kind of just comes out in these outbursts, but for the most part it's a very restrained, very controlled performance, but you can just tell there's just so much emotion underneath when he's doing his best to try and just keep it beneath the surface and keep this mask on. I think it was a really incredible performance. But also Deckard and the role that Harrison Ford plays in this movie, I thought was done really well. It caught me off guard at first that he didn't actually have that much screen time in the film, and that he comes in quite late, but at the same time I really love what they did with the character of Deckard, and Harrison Ford again delivered an incredible performance, a very kind of understated and emotional centered performance as well, and I think he was also really great. So yeah, I just thought this film was just so emotionally compelling to the point where I was almost in tears by the end of the film. That's how much it hit me, and that's how much it worked for me, and I really feel like this film is so good, it's probably going to just get better the more times you watch it. But yeah, I just love the whole emotional journey that the character of Kay goes on throughout this film. His arc, how he changes from where he starts off to where he ends up, and also the inclusion of Deckard and the role that he played, I thought was just absolutely fantastic as well. So yeah, that's one of the best things about this film for me. And also, another thing I have to talk about is the female characters in this film. And I hate to just bunch them all together, but I just can't talk about every single character. But the reason why I'm talking about just the female characters in general is that a lot of people have come out saying that this movie is misogynist, it's kind of degrading to women, it's objectifying women. I don't understand that criticism at all. And for me, when I hear people say that, I'm like, did you watch the film? Because in my opinion, this film has some of the most well-written, well-acted, strongest female characters of any film I've seen so far this year. I would argue maybe the female characters are even stronger than the men in this film. The main two, of course, being Ana de Armas, who plays Joy, and Sylvia Hoeks, who plays Love. They're the two main kind of actresses in this film, and I think they were both fantastic. And for me, they were both extremely well written characters who were multidimensional, they were textured, they were multi-layered, probably even more so than the male characters. So I just don't get that criticism at all. I think they were absolutely fantastically well written characters, performed spectacularly by the actors. I didn't really know what to think about the whole kind of Ana de Armas Joy character the first time around and her relationship with Kay, but the second time around that worked for me so much more, and I actually got surprisingly kind of much more emotionally invested in that relationship the second time around. And also Sylvia Hoeks as Love was a real scene stealer. I like Jared Leto in the film. I think he was good, but he really wasn't in that much of the film really. But she was great. She was almost like kind of Jared Leto's guard dog, and she was fantastic. And she also wasn't just, one-dimensional either. They were all incredibly textured, layered, multi-dimensional individuals. They were very strong and powerful and independent, but they were also kind of very vulnerable and emotional. At the same time, they were so textured and layered. So I just don't understand that complaint. And also, I cannot do the review and not talk about the technical aspects. Of course, everyone's already mentioned it, so it feels like kind of pointless mentioning it as well, but I kind of have to because it's just so absolutely spectacular. But it's the spellbinding visuals and godlike cinematography. And if this movie doesn't win Roger Deakins his first Academy Award, then I don't know what will. His work here is absolutely incredible. It's mind-blowing. And what he and Denis Villeneuve were able to do with this film is absolutely just mind-blowing. This is some of the best work he's ever done, and it's an incredible showcase for Roger Deakins and his talent. What he's able to do in this film, him and Denis Villeneuve, with just the visuals, the striking look of this film, it's really hard to put into words. Just everything from the shot composition to the lighting to the set design, everything from a visual standpoint is absolutely masterfully done. It really is just absolutely awe-inspiring just from a visual standpoint alone. Someone could watch this movie, and even if they didn't like it, or if they found it boring, or didn't find the story interesting, I think you could still watch it and be in absolute awe and enjoy yourself because of how amazing it is from just a visual standpoint alone. You can just watch it without even listening and enjoy it because it just looks absolutely spectacular. The colours, the set design, how it was shot, everything is just absolutely on point. It's some of the best cinematography I've seen in a long time, and not that, I haven't seen good cinematography in a while. It's just like this. It's just on a whole nother level entirely. It's just absolutely just godlike. And just, if this doesn't win an Oscar for at least cinematography, the Oscars just makes no sense anymore. It just absolutely has to. But just everything, like I said, from a visual and technical standpoint was absolutely masterfully done. The set design, the lighting, everything was just absolutely awe-inspiring. I'm just sat there watching it like, how do they do this? It's absolutely incredible. Everything from just the epic wide shots and establishing shots of the city that very much kind of harken back to the original, to the kind of the uses of light and shade, especially when we're in Wallace's temple, where it becomes almost like a kind of classic film noir from the 20s. I was just watching just the movements of the shadows and the contrast, the light and the shade. It was just absolutely incredible. You can just watch it from just a lighting standpoint and be like, this is absolutely amazing. I am loving this. It's just incredible. Like I said, especially those scenes in Wallace's temple, and just how it was lit, and just how the lighting and the music as well is used as like just characters in their own right. It was just so incredibly well done. And of course, Blade Runner, one of the things it's most well known for is the music, and I've got to talk about the music in this film. And I loved how music was used in this film. Of course, the score is absolutely incredible. Just a very intense and powerful score that really adds to the kind of the scariness and just the visceral kind of just intense nature of this kind of dark, scary future. But there's also a lot of moments of silence in this film. Like, the score comes in when it needs to. It's not just like, you know, like in some films where it's really distracting. In this film, you notice it, but you notice it in a good way. It doesn't take away from the visuals, it enhances the visuals, you know, like it makes it more powerful. It makes the imagery, the spectacular imagery on screen, even more powerful and more effective. It enhances it so much more so, and that's what a score should do. Whereas in some films, sometimes the score just builds and it's really rousing and it's like, it just distracts you, like, please stop, I don't need that. But in this film, the score comes in when it needs to, and it builds and it adds and enhances at the right moments, but it also goes away when it needs to as well. And there's a lot of moments of silence in this film. Like, it's a very powerful, intense, loud, very effective score that really works when it comes in. But there's also large chunks of this movie where there's silence and it's just characters talking, and I love that as well. Like, the score knew when to come in and when not to be there. The score was absolutely incredible and really added to the film, but it came in when it needed to, and it wasn't there when it didn't need to be there as well. So I think that was really well done. And I think that pretty much wraps up my review of Blade Runner 2049. I could probably just go on for hours because there's so much to talk about. There's so many things that I haven't said that I probably could talk about, but obviously I don't want this review to end up 3 hours, and obviously there's a lot of things that I could go more in depth into, especially as far as Ryan Gosling's character is concerned, but I can't really do that without getting into spoilers. There was so much about his character and his story that I really loved, but I can't really go into specifics without giving away major plot points and major spoilers. So overall, wrapping this up now, I think Blade Runner 2049 was an absolutely spectacular piece of cinema. Breathtakingly bold, visually striking, and incredibly emotionally compelling as well. It just absolutely blew me away. There was so much about this film that I loved. It's one of those films that as soon as you watch it, you just immediately want to watch it again. And the last time I can say that for a film was probably Arrival, which was Denis' last film, and then before that, you know, La La Land probably, and then Whiplash. And I think those are the best kind of films, the films that are so good, are so powerful, that make such an impression on you that the second they finish, you just instantly want to sit back down and watch it all over again. So overall, as you may have guessed, I'm going to give Blade Runner 2049 5 stars. This really is that rare film that I think is more rewarding the second time round. Most of the time I watch a film, I know how to feel about it straight away, and I can do my review straight away. But with this, I think it's that rare film that demands a second watch and demands to be seen time and time again, and I just cannot wait to go back and watch it a third time. I'm definitely going to see it at least once more in the cinema. So yeah, overall, Blade Runner 2049 was an incredibly emotionally satisfying, rich, rewarding experience, an incredible piece of cinema, spectacular from a visual, technical standpoint, very emotionally compelling. Performances were absolutely amazing as well. This really is one of those rare films that every single aspect was just flawlessly executed. I maybe had a few minor nitpicks the first time round, but as soon as I saw it the second time round, any little issues I had just completely went away. So there we go, Blade Runner 2049. Have you seen the film yet? You probably have. If so, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you think it was alright? Did you think it was great? Did you think it was not so great? What do you think? Let me know. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. If you missed my last review, be sure to click over here to catch up on my last film review, or perhaps down here to catch up on one of my other recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.